player Will.
Welcome back, Visions fans. Ready Player Will here. Getting back into the cadence of releasing my normal video schedule as things come out. I know it took a little bit of a hiatus the last month with New Year's and just stuff coming on with the new year, but getting back to it, we do have a new vision card this week alongside Gilgamesh. It's the Sidekicks Do Not Ditch the Hero. That's the name of it, but I will just call it the Gilgamesh vision card for the most part. It's a lot easier to remember the vision cards if you just call them by the name of the character that they were released intended for. And so this is a card that has some fun wrinkles to it that I do want to pick apart just a layer more complex than I normally do. But before we do anything, let's jump into the card itself. This is a vision card that for the first time covers 5 total classes. It's axe, book, glove, katana, and spear. It does have 3 agility points on it and 15% accuracy for the unique bestowed ability. It does have some extra stats for Gilgamesh in particular. It's 20% attack and 10 human killer if it's in the main slot. For the party effects, you get 24% area res, so that off the bat already leads you to believe that this is likely going to be a main slot vision card candidate for you. That's correct. It does also come with 28 pierce attack, 30% chain resistance, and again, that type of resistance is specific only to the accumulation of the damage of a certain kind of type in a row, like multiple slash attacks in a row. It will not defend against the chain of multiple fire attacks in a row. It's only the weapon type. And it does come with the Guild War effect of the 15 crit damage. The fact that there are 5 jobs on here already is a nice starting spot in terms of how versatile it can be to cover a large group of characters. But the only unfortunate thing is that only some of them get the real benefit of the upside of this card, which is the pierce attack, which is really only the pierce units that are benefiting from it. And this is where I want to look at the synergies of these classes when it comes to the area resistance stat first and foremost. Now, there's a lot of vision cards at this point in the game, and each of these 5 classes does already have numerous different vision cards to cover that main slot attribute, not including the Gilgamesh card. Spear already has 4, Katana has 5, Glove has 3, Axe has 2, and Book has 4. And being real, when I think of the Axe class, I'm really only thinking of the Fire Veritas unit and maybe the Halloween Lucio unit, who admittedly has lost a little bit of his power as of late. And then from the Book perspective, it really is just Summer Resnick and maybe Nickel. I don't know if you're really considering any other Book units in terms of modern day play. And so these 2 groups, while they are on the vision card, they're admittedly not as strong in terms of overall character selection outside of just Summer Resnick. But one of the things that struck me as I was making the slide is the fact that these 5 classes already have a fair amount of overlap when it comes to sharing area resistance cards. And if you look at the Bridal Alaya card that does have the area res on it, that's already shared between 3 of these groupings here. When you look at the Volke vision card, he's already shared on these 3 classes of Spear, Katana, and Glove. When you look at something like the Vivi vision card, that is already one in common between Katana and Book. When you look at the Glove synergy with Book as well, they already have the Silver Memories card in common. So when it comes to really like opening new doors between these classes, when it comes to area res, I think it's already mostly covered by a variety of them. And even then, most of these vision cards that I'm highlighting at the moment are permanent pool. There's only a couple limited cards that are on here in terms of what exists for you in the game already. And then I'm sorry, finally, Axe and Book also does already have an overlap as well. This is from a limited time PvE content, but this kind of content does recur, so you can get this again in the future if you already missed it. But let's get to the quick thoughts here now that we've kind of seen a summary of it. Now, to me, again, this vision card doesn't really open a ton of new doors between the 5 classes. They already share some pretty decent AoE resistance overlap, and that is one of the things that I look for in these vision cards to say, are there suddenly new synergies unlocked that really weren't there before? How valuable is that synergy? How limited are the opportunities for them to share vision cards? And as you saw, there's already more than enough options between those at least 3 classes on the left, Spear, Katana, and Glove, which do already have some overlap. But you really are only getting the utility of the 30 chain resistance as like new when you look at the party effects on this card, because the other groups don't have pierce attack as the main damage source. And so omitting that party-wide modifier, if we make the assumption that you can get the area res elsewhere, then really the only like new unique feature you're getting here is the 30% chain resistance, which admittedly is rather niche. If we were ballparking it, I think it ends up being like an 8 to 10% damage reduction, depending on the number of chains that have been accumulated, the number of hits that have been accumulated. The bottom line is, while this does have some value in the game, it's typically just overall a lower priority when it comes to what you're looking for in your team making. Now, one other thing, admittedly, crit damage for Guild War is nice, but admittedly not a premium. There are crit damage vision cards that already exist for these classes as well. And at the end of the day, even crit damage as a modifier is entirely dependent upon your crit rate. And so when you're talking about amplifying your potential crit damage, well, you have to first solve what your crit rate is. And so in terms of like order of operations of building out your team, you're likely looking to build out your dexterity stat and your crit rate stat before you're even doing the crit damage. Again, it's important, but it's not automatic guaranteed value. You have to do some things first to get the full value of it. And finally, this is my biggest takeaway. This card is primarily meant to be an offensive boost for the spear teams. This is definitely, a best in slot Gilgamesh damage vision card for what they give him for the unique attributes. Also just in terms of what you can get in the main slot for that extra pierce damage. But it may not actually even be my favorite spear AoE resistance card. And just flashing back to the screen, it's because I think a really competitive other vision card is the new Venera one that was just released, where that does also have the area resistance, but it's got the whopping 42% luck, and it's got 40% reaction block rate on it as well. Not to mention the Volke vision card also has the reaction block rate and the area res, but it also has the light resistance as of right now too, where when you look at teams that might have Yuna or Thancred or the future King Mont or Cloud, there's a fair amount of light units that even the Volke vision card might be preferable from a bulk perspective. And the same can be said for the Young Eld vision card that gives you a ton of HP percent as well as that crit rate. The big common theme between these three so far is that they are all like bulk related, or at least like luck related. The Gilgamesh card is the only one that has any real kind of modifier on it. And I wanted to do a quick comparison of my current limited Guild War team, the one that I've made today for limited Guild War starting tomorrow. This is currently what I'm working with for that Guild War team. And I just want to do a real quick high-level comparison. Right now, I have the Venera card in the main slot, and I have Gilgamesh's own card in the sub-slot, but I want to flip those two and just compare the differences. I'll be honest, I actually convinced myself to flip them after doing this. I thought that was an interesting exercise. But the one key thing I want to, again, emphasize is that right now in the sub-slot here, sure, you're getting the Pierce attack. That's certainly nice, but there are a variety of other vision cards that if you're just trying to put this in the sub-slot, you already have other replacements that can give you Pierce Attack or Magic Man Killer with a variety of other kinds of resistances where, sure, you don't get the little bit of chain resistance, but some of these have Unires, some of these have magic resistance. You have options. That's what I'm trying to get to here, that this isn't a uniquely special card in that regard. I think there are replacements. But if we're comparing my stats, and again, my Gilgamesh is reincarnated a fair bit, so these stats might look a little bit different than yours. But build A is where the Venera card is in the main slot, and build B is swapped, where Gilgamesh is in the main slot. And so when I'm just comparing some of the stats, not all of them, Gilgamesh in the main slot is 9% less accuracy overall. Not the end of the world, but it does give him 21 extra attack stat. But again, I'm not losing sleep over 21 attack. You're 1 agility point faster with his card in the main slot. You do lose 14% evasion on this team if you were theoretically going for a pseudo-evade team. That you need to do more than just what I've done, but technically having these cards in this position means that you're 14% less evasive innately. The crit rate is negligible. The reaction block rate, I would say also kind of negligible. Build A here, I'm at a full 100% react block rate on my Gilgamesh. You lose a little bit, you go down to 88%, but that's still pretty strong. And build B here with the Gilgamesh in the main slot, you get 5 extra area res, and technically you get 19 total modifier extra by elevating it to the main slot as compared to the sub slot. And just a note on the accuracy, because this is to me where I think the biggest decision point would be if you were ever contemplating where these cards need to be. These are just, I'm not going to go super deep into this. These are 4 popular evade-oriented characters that we're seeing at the moment. Obviously Riku Venera, but even Sephiroth and Shreka, particularly at the top end, do skew evasive in nature. People are just playing on the power creep of their luck stat and the vision card synergies. And obviously, this is also very dependent upon what your reincarnation stats are, and this isn't including buffs, where Riku technically gives a 25% evade buff, and one of the popular Seph Shreka builds is using the Lock TMR to give them luck percent as well. But this is the key thing I wanted to emphasize here, that this little box here, stay with me, I'm almost done, this first column, evade percent, is what the evade percent of these 4 units are within these builds, just ballparking. And this is the hit rate of trying to hit those units if you're using build A or build B. The key thing for me as a takeaway, Sephiroth and Shreka, just skipping ahead for a moment, you already have pretty darn good hit rates for both of them. They're well over 100%. That'll go down if they're using the lock TMR, but that'll also go up if you're using someone like Semi-Resonant, who gives you a 30% accuracy buff. The bottom line is that Seph and Shreka really aren't going to evade a whole lot from Gilgamesh regardless of this card synergy, but Riku and Venera, their hit rates are much, much lower, and in fact they're so low that if you were trying to hit this evade team of Riku and Venera, or really even like the Mono Earth variant, using the Riku team, which is the most popular Riku team, I would tend to think in some Guild War play, you're not even close to hitting them. You would need an accuracy expert, an Alex ring, and more likely than not, you would probably have to take out this Gilgamesh card entirely and substitute it for something like Secrets of the Heart or one of the accuracy-oriented ones. The bottom line is that this is one of the first cards to go, in my opinion, when you are trying to build for that potential, which I think Gilgamesh is one of the few units in the game who actually can get to some respectable hit rate levels. There's, 10 plus units or so. He's not alone, but he's within reach. And so to me, at the end of the day, the question, should you pull? It's a no, but there is an asterisk on this. This is a vision card that's absolutely aimed at the Pierce class. And so the answer is quite frankly just going to depend on how much you've invested into the Spear class, and is that a group you intend on using at some point in the future. And I'll be honest, if you haven't started now, you probably won't start in the future. Let's be real. Games just getting more and more expensive to build things from scratch as it goes on. But you got to ask yourself, are you pulling Gilgamesh? Or is the below team one that's feasible for you? Even this Mono Fire team is exceptionally powerful, very well rounded. Or otherwise, do you have Ramada ready to go as a partner? Have you max reincarnated your Wind Veritas unit and or Flagbearer Glaciella, who's now been through 2 cycles of reincarnation festivals where maybe you have built her up? Do you have the other Pierce vision cards to potentially build out that Pierce oriented vision card? And to me, this card is also semi-replaceable by some of the other existing Pierce vision cards, at least from the area res perspective, and 3 of them are permanent pool from an area res perspective, but even the ones with the Pierce modifiers are not all limited in nature either. So the uniqueness of this card, there's some collaborations where you see a vision card and you're like, you get this now because this is not going to rerun for a year, and this does have some premium stuff on it. I don't think this is one of those cards, and so I don't think you need to have the level of FOMO you might with some limited vision cards. Hopefully that all makes sense. Overall, this is still a very valuable card for Gilgamesh and for Pierce teams in general. It does add another wrinkle to the team building component of them, whether you go more offensive or defensive in nature, but it's not a slam dunk 100% of the time must put card in the party like some of the vision cards that come out for some of these units are. Regardless, that's basically everything I have to say. Per usual, comments, critiques, criticisms, questions, throw it all in the comment section below. Love to hear your thoughts if I adequately answered any questions you might have, but that's it for now. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll talk to you all soon.